And we're live. All right, welcome back to the All Things Aged Care Weekly Wrap-Up. My name is Anthony Nguyen, aged care recruitment expert and host of the Pioneers in Aged Care podcast. I'm the guy who's bringing sexy back to aged care through storytelling while simultaneously recruiting high-level clinical personnel and executives into the sector. If you're open to new opportunities in aged care, all you have to do is connect with me on LinkedIn or send your CV to anthony@acrex.com.au. Next, we have Robert Covino, founder and CEO of Mirrors Australia. He led the creation of technologies like Mirrors Metrics and Care Minute Manager, and now Mirrors Plus, an AI-powered platform uniting software and data to streamline everything from admissions to compliance. The magic doesn't stop here, as they have a whole suite of offerings to unveil soon as they move towards a never-ending goal to #Make Aged Care Better. Rounding out our hosting crew is Owen Matheson, Strategic Growth Advisor and Connector at Mission Critical and founder of Aligned Equity. He's the matchmaker behind Mirrors Plus and works across Mirrors and Dayspring Care to bring together the right people, strategy and partnerships to unlock real growth in aged care. He's also the co-founder of Steward, a community connection platform focused on helping people connect, belong and improve their well-being, all in on the mission to make aged care better. And our special guest for today is the Project and Policy Officer and STARS Volunteer Coordinator at Community Industry Group, a self-described people geek and positive change curator. She brings a wealth of experience spanning organizational development, mental health and community services. Throughout her dynamic career, which includes strategic leadership roles in major corporate, retail and government sectors, she has built a formidable reputation as a leader who brings people together, builds trust quickly and turns complex systemic challenges into practical action. Currently, she is at the front line of one of the healthcare system's most pressing issues, delayed hospital discharges. By leading a dedicated team of volunteers across the Illawarra and Shoalhaven regions, she provides critical emotional and practical support to older Australians navigating the daunting transition from hospital to aged care. A fierce systemic advocate, she truly believes the future of aging will be shaped through courage, partnership, and a willingness to have the conversations many still avoid. Ladies and gentlemen, please raise the roof for Tanya Southworth.
Hello.
And I got through that with my new Invisalign, and I was listing all over the place. So hopefully, I'll practice it. There was a lot of S's in there. So welcome, Tanya.
How cruel. Hi, Tanya. How are you?
I'm good, and thank you for that introduction. Lovely to be in the room with you three. All you making people that contribute so much to what's happening in aged care. So I'm in good company.
I was just thinking those beats weren't going to stop. We were into our afternoon.
It's Friday. We just kept going.
Keep on dancing.
So I wanted to start out where, you've done a few things over the years, Tanya, but take us back in terms of it seems you've always been strategic and you've always been caring, and it's combining those two worlds. You started off in the Shoalhaven City Council, learning about the region and its needs, and that was an interesting role you had first up, industry innovation, and how that plays into aged care.
Well, that wasn't first up. I mean, I had 20 years of a career before Shoalhaven City Council, so maybe I just like to read the, you know what? You know what happens is on LinkedIn, you kind of negate like the first half of your career. When you get to my age, you've got many years, and so you kind of summarize it. But I did work for Telstra and also David Jones in corporate world.
Yes.
Okay. Look, I worked very long hours, but they gave me a lot of opportunity. I learned a lot, and both of those organisations are very focused on their people and professional development. And they put me through university, and I learned a lot. But I got to a point where I thought, actually, I achieved that sort of career goal, and I thought, actually, this isn't enough for me. I want to be doing it. I am a very caring person, and trying to make more money out of customers, really, at the end of the day, is what they're trying to do, is that kind of corporate organisation, it's survival. But for me, it wasn't enough. And, if I'm going to work this hard, which is just my innate way of operating, I wanted to do something for the community and something that makes the world a better place. And then I worked for Shoalhaven City Council in economic development. And so that was really an amazing experience. And I would say everyone in that council is really dedicated to their job. But in economic development, you look at all different parts of our economy in the Shoalhaven and
Yes.
look at how we can create jobs and work, because that means people have money, they can pay for a roof over their head, but it's also about building and construction. But that gave me a great introduction to the community sector. And one of the things that was a bit of a battle for me in council, in an economic sense, is to talk about the value of aged care, disability, community services in that environment, how it's a foundation for a really good community.
Yes.
And yes, so it led me to other work in mental health. And a lot of times I've been able to bring my corporate background into the mix. But one of the things I say to a lot of people in the non-for-profit world, which I have worked in for the last 20 years, is actually they're a lot more ingenious in the non-for-profit world because we don't have the money. But what we have to draw on is people's kind of sort of know-how, and kind of we move faster too. So because you just got to get stuff done. And so I've really enjoyed that mix, kind of bringing some of that corporate, especially the technical know-how from Telstra. In David Jones, it was a customer ethos. In Shoalhaven City Council was that kind of broader economic kind of focus. But now, I work for the amazing community industry group with Nikki Sloan, Mark Sewell, and the rest of the team. And I'm coordinating the STARS volunteer program. So here I am at land now, and I'm sort of bringing it all together.
I love that, because I think what you're doing is so important, that work you have with Nikki and the team down in Illawarra. And it's certainly one of the topics we wanted to explore with you today. And we've had Mark on, and a lot of that team talking through. But just for the listeners, I mean, right now, somewhere in a public hospital across Australia, there's an older Australian who's ready to go home, and their bed is needed by the next patient, but they can't leave. So part of what we wanted to unpack across that is, it's hundreds of people that are exactly in that position in Illawarra, and that's only 1 in 5 hospitals that that we've been talking about. So I guess to frame it up for part of this discussion today, we certainly have known this wave is coming for 20 years, and and the initiative STARS is one of the many pillars and strategies we need. But I guess, why weren't we ready?
It's a really good question, and I think there's a couple of reasons for that. I think older Australians, if I think about my mum, they're kind of the quiet, older generation. They just get on with things. They don't want to make a fuss. And also they don't, when it comes to planning and things, they don't really want to disclose anything to the government or to anyone else. And they also don't want to have the conversation with their family either. It's kind of stick your head in the sand and wait until it's a crisis, and then we have to deal with it. And I think it goes across cultures too, because I think some different cultures like to really look after their own family, and it's seen as being kind of disrespectful or wrong to be able to, to think about someone else looking after your parent or grandparent as they get older. So I mean, all that kind of cultural aspects and kind of, the aging demographics. It's the first time we've had this kind of mix of demographics as well. So to be fair to everyone, we haven't been in this boat before. And so, of course, it's a little bit awkward having all these conversations. I mean, I've been talking to my mum about, she's 84 this year, and I've been talking for 5 or 6 years. And only now is she starting to kind of want to have the conversation with me. And I think the reason is because she's starting to see where she needs a bit more assistance. So that's me as an aged care person used to talking about this stuff. It still takes me 5 years to get my mum to kind of want to have the conversation with me, where I feel like I'm not kind of harassing her. Like, don't get me wrong, we don't talk about it all the time, but when the opportunity arises, when some of her things around the home are getting too much for her, bring it up. But now she is, and she's about to turn 85 this year. So, yeah.
Good on her. Yeah. Well, we are a young country, so yes, I mean it is part of our growing. We're the lucky country as well, but I'm still working on my Australian, but I love the the culture, the spirit, the have a go, which is another theme that with a lot of our panelists that is part of really their whole career, and where these fantastic organizations like STARS come from. It's people having a go. So that brings me a lot of confidence that this is it's a multifaceted challenge that we're working through. But bring us down to that ground level though, with the with those programs and also your fantastic work with Nikki and Mark. Like, walk us through and the listeners through what it actually looks like when you're the first to sit maybe bedside with someone in a hospital who can't go home, and what's going on, because I mean I think you're. When I saw with my father-in-law and your mother, they're aware of what's ahead, but they're not actually in that situation yet, or maybe they have been in it. But what is that?
Well, for most people, it's a big shock. It's a really big shock, and like I was, one of our volunteers at one of the hospitals just had a chat with a lady whose 96-year-old mum had just gone into hospital for the first time, because her mum had been in really good health, lived in a granny flat, but had a really bad fall, and now she was in hospital, in bed, bedridden, and the assessment decision around them was she had to go into residential care because she needed that 24/7 care. And what this lady said to the volunteer was, Mum and I just sat, and I sat next to the bed with my mum, and we both looked at each other and said, we hadn't planned on this happening. We had not planned on this happening. So if you can imagine what it's like as 90, because her mum still has very, cognitively, she's brilliant, but physically she just is unable to go home. But still, and her daughter's in her late 70s, and they had not planned on this, because I think they wanted, her to, like my mum, she just wants to die at home, nice and quietly, no fuss, no fanfare, no doctors. And that's their situation. And it's often the same, but for some, it's a bit of frustration, actually, because some people have done some planning, but what's happened is because of the shortage of beds and services, they're just not available. So for some people, it's a bit of frustration. What do they do? How do they approach those circumstances? So our volunteers are great advocates for what they can do to go visit different aged care providers. We make sure that the full story behind the person in hospital is shared with their permission, because sometimes we find only the clinical information, which is critical in the transition, is well understood. But some of the career background, like one guy, he was a footballer and he was a mad Essendon fan, and he had grandchildren that had played for Essendon. Like, this is his biggest story. And so we share that with aged care providers as well. And aged care providers tell us that's really useful information for them to know as well, because they want to know the whole person. So it's this kind of, but there is a lot of, when I say frustration, it's quite frustration. Like, no one in these circumstances, very few want to really shout out and complain. I get some people in the media wanting to interview, and families just, they're going through, it's so traumatic. They just don't want to talk to anyone more broadly. But what I talk to them about is sometimes we need to talk to some people and share this story and maybe de-identify it, which is what we always do, so people understand the complexity, so we can learn from that complexity on ways to do better. That's what STARS is part of the Bit Broader Task Force. We collaborate really heavily with the hospitals, and all our referral process, I work really closely, all our volunteers work really closely with the social workers and the nurse unit managers and nurses. Like, it's a real collaborative effort. But still, for the older person, it's sometimes incredibly confusing. So we're always, our approach it has to be adjusted depending on the older person and the family. And not every older person needs a STARS volunteer. You know, many older people are all over this and they're just a bit frustrated because actually it's quite a complicated process to find, to get into residential care. And now it's complicated to try and organise home care as well. So...
There's a program I think we wanted to hear more about, STARS, for those that aren't aware of it, because it's such a fantastic outcome, and you've given a little bit of taste of it. But STARS came out of a real crisis, right? It was funded by New South Wales Health because the bed blockage, started to become chronic, and with that, what was the program designed to fix that the system couldn't?
Well, we knew that there's a situation where we've got a health system and hospital system here, which is funded and operates in a very different market than the aged care, which is an open market and lots of different providers. But, the hospital systems like Medicare, and we knew that the steps between the two, which have to be taken by an older person, were really complicated and difficult. And also we knew that sometimes there's a lot of family dispute and there's a lot of debate about is this the right move? And we just knew that if people had by their side someone that actually was used to these conversations and helping people work through maybe how do you make this decision so everyone feels and knows it's the right decision, and also how do you navigate aged care and what is aged care, because a lot of people think it's a terrible place because of all the media years ago, but what we also highlight is how many changes are in place and how amazing our providers are, especially in the Illawarra and Shoalhaven, because we work so closely with them. And we have an iPad, we show them images and photos, but we also share our own stories because most of our STARS volunteers, so there are requirements. Not everyone can become a STARS volunteer. You do need to have that aged care experience. And a lot of our STARS volunteers do have from working in aged care, but I also have STARS volunteers who have extensive experience from supporting their loved ones. Most of our volunteers have both. I find most people these days, if you work in aged care, you've also supported your families. And they need to have a national police check and they need to have referees, and then we provide them with ongoing professional development ourselves because we realise the work does require some nuance. There's knowledge of aged care, but there's also being able to communicate to an older person and a family in a crisis in a hospital context. So that's the work of STARS. But the reason why we were created is we just knew that everyone was doing their best in their own lanes, to help the older person, but no one was kind of working across those functions to build a bridge. I think that's the way Nikki sort of explained it to me when she was talking about what she envisaged STARS volunteers to do. Like, I think obviously this work will be paid workforce, but I sometimes wonder if you were paid, I don't know whether I'd have the volunteers I've got now. They're like, I have CEOs that are volunteers. I have someone that's been, so from a disability background but has supported both his parents. I mean, I have this wide range, and I always wonder, look, it would be great if this was a paid function and role, but would I get these people with this extensive background offering their time in the same way?
Yeah, probably not. I mean, we heard from Paul Sadler on that too, with Meals on Wheels and just the increasing cost of petrol on the volunteers. I mean, it starts to get to a point where they're putting their own livelihood into volunteering time. It's starting to erode from quality of life and other commitments they have. So it is a strain everywhere. But it's so important because I can't imagine being a family or an individual that is feeling like they have to navigate that transition alone. So that. Hats off to you on that.
Yeah. Can you imagine, if English is your second language, if you don't have family or you're disenfranchised from your family, and, some people they may have one very close friend, this is the reality for quite a few people in this situation in hospital. And some people, like the average days for an older person's average day for all of us, going to hospital is 3 days. So that's what hospitals are designed for. Get you, fix you up, get you out, because that's what we all want too. So they're very depersonalized. Their staff are very caring and brilliant, and very clean and tidy, but then nothing personal around you. But for an older person, the average length of stay is 66 days. So
wow.
It's a long time.
Yeah.
And a lot of people we support have been in there for longer than 8 months, some more than 12. So this is not a good situation. And I feel very honoured to be part of the STARS volunteer group who offer their time. Like, we're not going to fix every problem. And sometimes we need to understand that with our volunteers and with my supervision is to remind them that sometimes you're not going to solve, may not be able to solve it, but simply spending time with them and being someone who cares, who's someone from the community, that independence seems to for older people as well. And feedback afterwards, we don't get a lot because people have just got a lot to do in their transition. But some people that do thank us say just having that person by our side, someone to talk to, and someone who's there to kind of help us work through the rough bits of what we're trying to work out was really helpful. So,
and you said on that, I mean, some dates there that really, I think, will blow the minds of people when they hear. I mean, we have had discussions about this, but you said that the longer someone is stuck in hospital, the harder it gets for them to make a decision. Why does also waiting so long in the hospital make people less able to choose more? What's happening at that?
Yeah, it's different for most people, but I think the main reason is just the exhaustion and boredom and frustration and the kind of feeling like you're left in the hospital. Like, it's not the community they thought they were part of. It's the shock of all that. And so they lose hope a bit. And so that lack of kind of, when you haven't had an offer, not even one placement offer, it's very, very disheartening. And then when you do get a placement offer, what you're in your mind, you're going, I don't even know this place. I don't know. They're going to move. I got bundled off into an ambulance in my pajamas, right? And then I was sorted out, but 2 weeks later, a whole group of people sat around me, very nice people, doctors, nurses, social workers, very lovely, and my family. And they said, you can never go home again. You've got to go into residential care. Can you imagine going, and if it was me, I'd be going, no, I'm not. I've got my dogs at home. What about my personal belongings? Who's going to pack up my thing? Like, can you imagine all of this is going on while you're expected to accept the decision and follow through? And you do feel like a lot of people are telling you what to do in the hospital where, one of the things our volunteers do talk a lot about, well, in residential care, it can be very different. You will have a lot more say. You can have a wine or a beer at night. You can, watch the footy. You can have your meals in whichever way you would like, in your room or with others. You can go on social outings. You can go out with your family. It's because some people think, actually, I think and this is a small percentage, that the hospital care is the best possible care for their loved one. And they're worried that they go into residential care and they're not going to get the same level of care. So that's another. So as you can tell, there's so many multiple factors, and it's, the social workers do an amazing job, providing the information, helping with the paperwork.
Take us to the other side of that, Tanya. I noticed that you had a role with Warragul on the other side, being involved in preparing for the intake of a new resident. What are the sort of things, being on both sides of the fence, that you started to develop there to help support the STARS process from the provider side?
Well, when I was in Warragul, it was more organisational development. So it was all about the recruitment, onboarding and professional development of people that worked at Warragul. And so in Warragul, always very focused on, you know, older people and what they needed and what was best for them, and also making sure everyone that worked there had that ethos in the way they worked. So I think it was always the focus of everyone is the very best of high quality care for those that were residents. And there was always thinking about how do we ensure that transition and their first introduction to Warragul is a really, really good experience for everyone involved, particularly family members and friends that are helping with the decision making. Yes. So Warragul's a phenomenal organisation. I loved working there. And thanks to Jenny Hutchins. And Mark, the CEO before.
Yes, shout out to Jenny and Mark and Alyssa, who we had on the other day.
And Alyssa and Craig Smith, they're still there. There's so many amazing people. Yeah, amazing. Yeah. But I do think that experience is really helping me with the STARS program in understanding, like when we do connect with aged care providers, I'm very, very aware of the information they need and what's helpful for them. So that's been really, really good. And also having those connections, like Mark's got lots of connections as well. We're all very united in the Illawarra Shoalhaven region with our aged care providers, and that's really helpful too. They're very committed to supporting people so they're not in this terrible situation stuck in hospital.
Well, I mean, that's more of a question for a Mark in a way, but where do you see the gap between the hospital and aged care structurally? And, you know, what would you do to address that gap if you could?
I think it's getting better. I think it's improving because we're sitting around the table a lot more. We're thinking about the way we share information. There's a lot of, you know, they're totally different systems. And also there's a lot of different type of language used, although the clinical information is obviously consistent. But as I said, with residential care, it's the whole of the story and the whole of the person, because that's what they're interested in. Because in residential care homes, it's a whole community of people. So they're really interested in how they make that mix work really well, which is a real benefit to the older person as they move in. So I think we've still got a way to go to improve those communication systems. And because they're functionally and politically, you know, from a systems perspective, they're totally separate. But I actually think they kind of should sit all under the health. I don't know. I'm you know, Mark and Nikki and Jenny, and there's many other people that would probably have greater insight onto how that could be improved. But I just see it's that disconnect, because how can an open market work really well with a, you know, government Medicare funded market? And I know people want to make that work, and things are on its way.
And
that's good to hear.
Health and Aged Care Task Force comes in, because you're trying to give a voice to all of those stakeholders around their view of the world. You're all climbing the mountain, but you're at different parts of the mountain with a similar vision in mind, but different perspectives.
Yeah. Can I give you an example? And I hope Nikki doesn't mind, but there was a CI group had a forum the other day, and that was brought together health, hospital and aged care and home services. And one of the things they came up with was, you know, when someone does get bundled off in the ambulance, what they don't take with them is some of the really important information that helps them in the hospital, like, you know, their medications, their service providers, and all the rest of it. So, I mean, in my local community, there's the Lions Club have created something you can keep on your fridge. So now what that group, though, are going to do through CI Group and Nikki Sloan driving this is to create that kind of resource that everyone can have, but particularly older people can sit on their fridge or something like that. And then when the ambulance driver comes, fix you up. Is that right? An ambulance person, is that the correct term? Comes and fix you up.
paramedic?
But they grab this critical information, because that critical information, what that does, it'll speed it up from a hospital perspective. And who is this older person connected to? And I think, Rob, you were talking about your systems, about, the older person and the connections that they can have that really can help them age well. It's a similar principle, but it's something that the
physical,
Well,
it'll be a
do
game.
you have magnets for your clients?
What was that? The fridge magnet for the clients.
Make light of it, Tanya, but something about the old, plumber and the handyman and everyone else you need on the fridge. Why aren't we looking at the fridge? It's a good, simple solve.
I mean, to Tanya's point, this is a different generation.
And why not?
I mean, the generation that's not online, they still probably go to the post office to pay bills. I live in Barrel, so I mean, my demographic is a lot of that. I've got a post office, and there's like a huge line of everyone paying bills. I'm like, there's something called the internet here, guys. But anyway, it's just how they. I mean, how they trust it, but it's also a social outing. I mean, that's a purpose. It's another activity in a week and a day and everything that they even look forward to, because then they run into people, they socialize, and I can I've seen the journey play out many times before. Tanya, I did love to explore some of that too, because we're actually working with the first provider-led program to also address this. So Chris Marmolosis, who's the CEO of Whitting Group, and Mark and Nikki are also joining forces now. But provider-led group is a big, I guess it's a big step change, because most of those initiatives have been coming from the outside into the providers, and the providers really looking at it as I don't want to say a transaction, but they've been looking at it through a different lens, as opposed to really, all right, let's all together raise up and help our acute sector and those patients really have a better experience. And so Monday we've got our first workshop with the Commonwealth and also New South Wales Health, where we have 4 local area health districts. But what we have is a platform for the discharge planners, and a lot of what you've been talking about is giving more concepts to suggest to further design areas. But it's really, the starting point is really using existing data that we have with the providers' Medicare, and that gives us an availability and an insight to the industry of where the beds are. So then the conversations that can be had with the families and the people, you can start talking about, maybe you have a daughter that lives in Brisbane, as opposed to Campbelltown, or vice versa, to really enrich that and start that journey as a much broader and, dare I say, a patient-centric discharge approach. Because the outcome that, one of the outcomes we're certainly seeking to measure is bringing those discharge wait times down, but also under principles that we don't want everyone to have to do more work for this too. If the data is already there, such as from the aged care providers, that is an insight then the hospital could have access to, that can really start those conversations on a more structured and meaningful ground. And then programs such as yourself and tying into that is really just an extra layer that I now appreciate from the descriptions you've given to that whole process. So thank you for sharing that, because that's this is a complex challenge, and it requires many different parties and individuals to come together, which Nikki and Mark and now Chris through his collaborative healthcare initiative and the providers he's been able to bring on this journey. He's got now close to 100,000 beds of the industry now signing up for this actual disclosure, if you will, to give consent to open that data to to these personas to really tackle this head on. But this is just chapter 1. So look forward to continuing this conversation with many other outcomes there.
So we're at that. Oh, sorry. We're at the part of the show where we invite people backstage to jump on and join us. We've got Val Fell coming up first. We've also got Kathy Stanford and Kim Davies backstage as well. So as soon as Kathy and Kim, if you do want to join us on the show,
Kim,
please.
That is too
Kathy.
funny, yeah. Stop it.
That was a good pickup, Owen. All right, Val. Tanya, how do you know Val?
Well,
Val.
Val and I are good friends and colleagues, really, because she's been a part of our task force with CI Community Industry Group. And remember, we've got a broader task force with all levels of government, cross health, aged care providers, and people like Val to kind of be the guiding force behind how we fix this crisis. So, yeah, and I've had the pleasure of many chats with Val because I also went to her the dementia forum that she runs every year, but I'll let Val do more explanation of that. But I go every year because, one, I get connected to so many people. They're fantastic presenters. And I also find all the speakers, like I learn so much from those forums that it's made a difference in the way I do my work. So thanks to Val.
Brilliant. Good on you, Val. Love to hear more about your story, Val. Tell us a little bit about your journey and how you first came to learn about aged care and the sort of roles that you've had.
Well, as I said to you before, I'm fairly old, and I'm one of a family of 11 children, and I'm the 8th in the family. So my first introduction to dementia was in the 1960s, when my when I was an observer of what happened when my sister's husband developed dementia, and in those days they just said Alzheimer's. In fact, he was misdiagnosed to start with, because he began to show signs of changed behaviours, etc. The doctor said, "Oh, you're about to have a nervous breakdown. We'll put you into hospital and give you shock treatment." That's what they did in the 1960s, until a year or so later, or might have been sooner than that, they said, "Well, actually, you have this new thing called Alzheimer's," because Alzheimer's didn't come into being until the 1906. And of course, in those days, it took things like research into medicine and all other things to take some time to permeate through the world. But, that was my start of the journey, because I was observing what happened to his family and my sister and the effect that had. And in those days, it was a biomedical model where the people were just put into the wards and in a hospital or a nursing home. And in the mornings, we're sort of woken up and dressed and medicated and taken to breakfast. And then they were put in their chairs till lunchtime, when they were given their lunch. And then in the afternoon, they had a nap. And then in the evening, it was a case of having dinner, taken back to bed, medicated, and lights out. That was it. There were no such things as meaningful activities or anything like that. I didn't know what it meant then. So that was completely different. And that was before, or in fact, you weren't even quite often cooked. You were known for your disease rather than for your personality. They would say, "Oh, he's a dementia in that ward, and he's a measles in that ward," not a measles, but he's something else in that ward. Then that was before the John Howard Act in 1997, when another brother-in-law just after that time was also diagnosed. Now, the first person was very quiet. Johnny was very, very quiet. Bert was also quiet, but they had different occupations, different backgrounds, and this is where the narrative about their holistic view of life is, started to show the difference between the way people should be treated. The second brother-in-law had been an anti-aircraft gunner, and they told him in the first instance that he had tinnitus. Then they discovered that no, he also had Alzheimer's. But the system started to change that, and my second sister had much more help, generally, from various organisations. And it was about that time, or just before that time, Henry Brodati had started off the Carers Association for Alzheimer's, the Alzheimer's carers. So I was observing all that, and then my husband started to show signs of dementia. at the turn of the century, and my neurologist gave me a piece of paper and said, I think you'd better join Alzheimer's. So I immediately joined Alzheimer's, and that was in 2006. And that's when I became a dementia advocate and became a carer. Then in 2013, I became a former carer. Yeah. And now, at the age of 97, I am a participant in the system because I'm on a package. I still live alone at home. But I started
Good on you, Val. 97 and still living at home.
Yeah.
That's amazing. What is your secret to longer life, do you think?
Being busy.
Yes.
Keep yourself occupied. Don't become socially isolated. Even though at the moment I'm a bit more socially isolated than I was before because I have a mobility problem and I have to use a walker, blah, blah, blah sort of thing. So I don't sort of go out a lot as much as I used to because it means I have to get a cab and all the rest of it. And that becomes expensive, even though you're on a package. But most of my package goes on physiotherapy so that I can keep going. But that's another story.
Keep the maintenance program happening.
When I was at Ian was first diagnosed, I joined the Wollongong Alzheimer's Club Association, and we got to the stage where that was getting very big, and it was decided the council would run, not the council, Corunlia were running that, the Primary Health Network were running that group at the time, and they wanted to change the date, and a lot of people said, we can't go on that date. We can't go on that date because all our arrangements for years have been for a particular day. And so they said, we can't come if you change the date from Wednesday to Tuesday. And so I said, okay, I'll start another group.
Love it. A simple, practical solution.
I started studying dementia then and, and doing short courses and all the rest of it. And I've now been running a carers group for a support group. It's a Coronal Dementia Carers Support Group, and we meet once a month, and I get about 20 people a month there.
That's brilliant.
There are more people on the list than that, but then from that on, I became part of OPAN as well, and also I'm a member of COTA. I'm a life member of Dementia Australia, a life member of COTA. And I'm also on OPAN, and on the Association for Intergenerational Education, which I have an interest in as well.
Intergenerational. That's really interesting. So, are you working with the other generations as well, Val? Have you got some young people? Tell us more about the intergenerational, because that's pretty interesting.
Actually, for the last couple of years. I came across intergenerational education about 2015 when one of the dementia research groups had a conference in Sydney, and I went to that, and there was a young child there who was asked to do a presentation which had resulted from the fact that when she was in 5th class at the end of the school year, she was asked her class was asked by the teacher to prepare a presentation for the end of the the end of the year stuff when they all had a story to tell. And this child decided to write about her grandfather who had Alzheimer's, and she wrote about what it was like to have a grandparent who had Alzheimer's. And she not only wrote about it, but she made videos. She did all kinds of things, drawings and paintings. And she presented that at the Wesley Mission to a conference of about 1,000 academics.
Wow, amazing.
And that started the original Kids for Dementia, because her teacher took the work to the University of New South Wales. Belinda Goodenough picked it up, and we started to look for schools to take it on. But then funding ran out and it sort of died a bit. But now in the last couple of years, there's been an association of intergenerational practice formed, and it's a big thing at the moment. But my part in it more recently has been, and you can imagine, at 9 o'clock in the morning I might have a call to go to school. I go on Zoom.
Go back to school again, Val. At 97.
I go back onto Zoom, and I'm linked in with a class of children, usually about a fifth class, or we have done some with the second student, and an activities officer at a residential facility where there are about a dozen people who are residents in the activities room, and a fellow called Greg Cronin who coordinates the whole thing. And then there'd probably be about 2 or 3 of us from the community who are on the third piece of the triangle. And we have a lesson. And the lesson is usually about something, it has to be something out of the curriculum. And so it can be on sport, it can be on geography, it can be on resilience, it can be on all kinds of things. And so we spend a whole lesson talking to one another on Zoom. And the children develop such an empathetic attitude towards the older people that it's quite fantastic. And the older people have a chance to talk to the younger people. And the younger people learn that older people are still people.
Yes.
And the conversations flow. And in fact, there's one of the schools who regularly goes to visit the people in the older school, in the residential facility. You know, they exchange things on Father's Day, Mother's Day, and all this kind of thing. And that is essential. And it means that when I want those kind of lessons to go on in sort of a number of years until you get to year 11 or 12, when you find that there is a pathway to working with older people. And you'll find the students, and I've talked to university students as well on this, are more inclined to go out and say, well, if people offer them a job in aged care, they might take a job in aged care instead of being told by others, oh, you don't want to do that, you know. Because they can develop their own ideas by having had contact. Because these days, with the mobility of the people in general, there are a lot of younger people out there who never have conversations with older people because their relatives and their friends live in another street, another town, or even another country. And so they haven't got that opportunity to exchange things. Whereas when I was younger, what did you do on Sundays? You went to visit Grandpa or Grandma.
Same.
Yeah. Those were the days. The Sunday roast. We'd all gather around for the Sunday roast. I do want to, while there's a moment to respond here, Tom Simons, the CEO of Ageing Australia, doing a great job. Raise the roof for Tom and all the amazing team at Ageing Australia doing their thing. They've definitely got the attention of the mainstream media around the under-planning for residential care. I mean, you're an anomaly, Val, that 97, you're still living at home. So there is hope. But what did you make of the recent, have you seen the recent media in some of the changes, proposed changes to aged care and how we care for the next generation coming through? Because we're going to have more 80-year-olds than any other time in history.
Yeah, that's
as
right.
the boomers come through.
Well, look, the whole thing is, the reason we are in this position is that we have not had planning for the last 10 years. In this particular area, there hasn't been a new facility built in the last 10 years. Simply because it means that we haven't sort of come to grips with the fact that we need to plan ahead. And that's where the Illawarra Task Force comes into being, because one of the things on that, Tanya, as you will know, is we not only have the federal government in the form of those present would be, excuse me, the local representatives of the federal government, but we also have this stewardship program where we actually have an aged care office in Wollongong, and
Right.
we've had a couple of people from that particular office who attend the task force.
Yes.
And so we've got that. We've got providers. We've got, the next layer of government with Ryan Parker's always there. And then we've got the Primary Health Network there. We've got Margot Maines there. We've got...
Margot Maines, doing a great job.
Yeah. And so...
Lou Fox alongside Margot. Who was it before?
Yeah. We've got all these people who are there who have the same aim, and that is to improve the system that we currently have, or improve the system that we don't have. And we've got people to come from all areas. And having the local council there is imperative, because we can't get anywhere. Because, somebody decides to build a home, they go through all the things of designing it and all the rest of it and what have you, and they put it to council. And what has happened in previous years, it's just been stopped. We haven't had the development application approved. I can point to
we do have the planning minister, Paul Scully, is actually based in Wollongong, isn't he? And
well, Paul is always at these meetings, both Paul and Ryan.
Yeah, he seems very engaged.
We've got Paul, Ryan, and Alison all there, right? And of course, we've got people like Jenny and Mark Sewell and everybody else,
and Mark, and they did a great presentation. I think Paul was saying they're committing to 28 days on a turnaround for that approval process, which is a big movement from 90 days and beyond. But it was interesting, Val, what Mark Butler, the federal minister, said was that we would need to build and bring online a new aged care facility every 3 days to meet the current.
Because there are
a little bit of work to do.
Nationwide, there are about 3,000 people sitting in hospital. But I don't know whether I'm fortunate or unfortunate. I've had another experience. I had to go to hospital about 18 months ago, and because of bed block, I was waiting in emergency for 24 hours. Then they found a bed for me, but the only bed they could find for me was in a geriatric ward, but it was a ward in which more than half the people were waiting to go into a nursing home or go home with the appropriate care, which doesn't exist at the moment. So I was locked in a dementia ward.
Oh gosh! Well, of all people, the very crusader for dementia who has all of her memories. The irony.
Well, you see, I was a geriatric, obviously, but
But you would never be forgotten about, Val.
I spent just over 2 weeks there before they eventually, much to my daughter's delight, shifted me up to Bulli, which was fantastic. The difference between the two places, the ward, which I understand is no longer being used for that purpose, it's been changed. Hospital system has changed it around. But my daughter was getting to the stage where she didn't really want to come and see me because of the things that went on in the dementia ward. People wandering around and all the rest of it. Pinching my phone and pinching my earphones.
Oh, really? Got to watch them.
and try to get into bed with you as well.
Oh, you're right.
But one of the funniest things was that when I went in there, I was in a 4-bed section, and the other 3 beds were occupied by elderly gentlemen. And then one day a lady was put into one of the beds, and I thought, oh, good, I'll have someone to talk to, and because the others didn't talk. And so she came across and she saw the flowers that I had. And she said, oh, where did those come from? And I told her that they came from the Council of Elders, because I was on the council at the time. I've just finished my 4-year stint on that. But So I told her, and she didn't know what it was, so I explained it to her. And then she seemed quite normal in that particular case. Then they put her to bed, and a little while later she had an episode, and she was wandering around, and they wanted to calm her down. And she pointed to me and said, "She's the voice. I've got to talk to that lady. She's the voice of the older people."
You are, Val. You are the voice. Oh.
Yes.
She's so lucky she had you. There you go. She's so lucky.
Let me tell you about the forum this year. The forum this year will be at the Frat. This is the 15th one. And it will be on the 9th of September. It runs from 10 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon. Doors open at 9:30. We have Tanya Buchanan from the from Dementia Australia there. We have Robert Day from the Department of Health and Aged Care. We have Professor Lizanne Oye, who is from the University Health and Medical Research, University of Wollongong, and she will be talking about the title of her speech. Her presentation will be from skins to solutions.
Okay. Well, we will definitely post something about that. Yeah,
that's researching developing brain cells and then using them for attempts to find, an antidote or something or other.
Yeah, fascinating.
So she's been on 2 occasions before. She wasn't there last year. But in addition to that, we will have people from Allied Health talking.
Yes.
And we will have something we haven't had before, which is to get around to looking at this thing in a holistic fashion. We've got some chaplains talking about the spiritual side of aged care. And we will have a dementia choir. Have a dementia choir singing, or a dementia inclusive choir. They're not totally dementia. Singing.
I was going to say, because how would everyone go with remembering the lyrics?
You'd be surprised. Music is a fantastic therapy, and I can give you examples of that. But
great.
But they'll be singing at lunchtime, and then in the afternoon we'll have what else we got on? But all that. But we've got a full 20 minutes for 25 minutes of open question time. People,
sounds like a very full program. I do have someone who would love to have a chat to you, Val, because we're getting close on time. But we've got Kim Davis.
Too much of your time.
No, not at all. We'd love to have you come back. No doubt you've got a lot more to say. Nikki Sloan says that you are a hero of hers, and loves the good work you do in the community. And Tanya, Nikki said to you, you were the only choice for stars. So Nikki is tuning in with interest. And we've got Kim Davis from a little bit further afield up north. She wanted to say hi before you go. So hi, Kim, how are you?
Hi guys, how are you? Hello Val. I've had some chats with you on Facebook, so it's really nice to be able to hear you speak. I certainly hope I'm half as bright as you are when I'm your age. So it's been wonderful listening to you. I've sat here with a smile on my face the whole time. I really enjoyed Tanya's presentation too, and question. How do we, because I have sort of kept abreast of the good work that STARS has been doing, how do we look at getting funding or something for that program to run to roll it out in different states and regions? In Townsville, we certainly have a problem with bed block. I think most of our facilities don't have any respite beds even. So, we're in a really tight situation here as well.
Yeah. I mean, I always think where there's a will, there's a way, particularly when there's people like you around, Kim, to advocate and push. And you can use the success of and Val, but the success of STARS is evident through we've got information we can share, and we've got a way of operating that we can share. So it is scalable, and we designed it from the beginning like that, but it's always, we do a co-design process with every region and every hospital and every people, you know, every region's a little bit different to the rest, to the other. And so that's our principles, and we work very collaboratively with everyone, all the different stakeholders in the process. So they're our secrets of success. And I think you know why, because I can tell you already see why it's so valuable to do it that way.
Absolutely. And, you know, I like the stories that you shared, and, you know, just from the work that we do and my own family and experiences, I see the issues that we're coming up against because of this problem. So, and I think unless the sector and government work with health, we're not going to get on top of this situation. And it's not just a matter of building more beds. I think there's other solutions that we can come up with. Yeah,
that's right. And, you know, with our work, our focus is not what should be done or isn't done properly. Our focus is on what can we do. And it's amazing the ideas that people generate when we're sharing information and working together. It's incredibly powerful, but it also matters to older people in hospital. Often I say to them, you've got a lot of people in our community right now working really hard to fix this for your benefit. And you may feel alone, but you're not. There's people like in my organisation and in aged care and in the community that are really focused on fixing this so that you don't have this delayed discharge any longer. So I mean, it's hard for them to feel that because they're in hospital for a long time, but I know it matters to them because they really feel disheartened by what's happened to them. They feel forgotten.
And the longer people
There's
are
definitely
in
a
work
conversation.
Sorry?
We definitely encourage you to connect with Kim, Tanya, through our chat here, and because that's a conversation that we definitely have to see continue. Nikki Sloan would like to say, that's a great question, Kim, and we'd be delighted to share our STARS program with other regions. So there's an open invitation there with Tanya and Nikki to follow up. We're not just about platitudes and good ideas here at All Things Aged Care. We really want to stimulate action and outcomes. Unfortunately, we are.
And he's gone.
We're on the countdown.
I hope it doesn't fall on me to do the outro, because I love Owen's outros. But I guess I guess I'll paraphrase what Owen normally says. We're going to thank you all for joining the show. Val, Tanya, Kim, Rob and Owen, and hopefully we have Kathy Stanford next time as well. And how does Owen say it? All for one and one for all things aged care.
Yeah. So raise the roof.
Raise the roof.
Well, definitely, I can raise the roof. But thank you all. We'll see you all next week.
Thanks for the opportunity. Hi, Val.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, Kim. Bye.